One. All right, I've hit go live. I'm now gonna go and hit go live in my webinar app. We should be live. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Let me know if you can see me, you can hear me. I know you guys have been super eager in the chat, so it's so great to see so many of you guys here. Refresh the page. There, here we go. Great to see you. Yay. I hope some of you guys have come back from the 11 o'clock workshop, but I am so excited for this event. So what we're going to be doing today, this is a panel. So we are actually joined with an incredible lineup of course creators. And I am actually going to go switch my screen. You guys are going to see enough of me throughout this event. We are joined by the incredible Benny Lewis, Susie Ashworth, and Lauren Tickner, and hopefully soon we'll have Jada Selner with us. Now, I'd love for us just to start and do a round robin style intro. And I'd love for you guys to introduce your name, your business, but also what your course is. So Susie, why don't we start with you?
Okay, my name is Susie Ashworth. I am a visibility strategist. I specialise in helping people with mindset and messaging. However, my first course was all about positive birthing. So the Calm Birth School, of which I am a Hay House author. I have a book called The Calm Birth Method. So my journey with online courses has been a wild and crazy ride. Now my flagship course is called A Limitless Life Experience. So I have experience in something completely different from business and marketing, having started off helping people learn how to birth calm and positively. I hope that's helpful.
I love, and we're actually going to come back to that, but very exciting. And next we have the lovely Lauren Tickner.
Hello, so yes, my name is Lauren Tickner. I help entrepreneurs build their personal brand and turn their personal brand into something that they can monetize and profit from. So anybody who has an online course, having a strong personal brand is absolutely amazing for you because it enables you to sell at scale. So I help people when it comes to building a social media following and standing out on social media. Really, that's it. And my course is called Impact Through Influence, and that's what I'm all about.
Very exciting. And last but not least, we have Benny, but I know he has a very special intro that he would like to make.
All right.
Oh, I think someone has their speakers on. Yeah, there you go.
Last but not least, we have Benny, but I know he has a very special intro.
I know Benny loves his live streams. There's no audio, Benny, but that is okay. Great. And do you want to introduce yourself?
Well, am I coming through now?
Yeah, we can hear you. Just some background music.
Okay. So, yes, I'm Benny Lewis. I run fluentin3months.com, which is the world's largest language learning website. And I give courses that encourage people to speak the language from day one. And I myself only spoke English right into my early 20s. So I'm very much of the opinion that anyone can get into this. It's just a matter of the technique. And that's what I attempt to do in my courses. And of course, I like to bring a little fun into the whole language learning thing and make silly videos like this one. And I can be as cool as I like to be as I'm making those videos, and I can do the themes in terms of trolling people, which is always good, but essentially that's who I am in a nutshell, and I look forward to answering anyone's questions today.
Lovely. And I'm actually very excited to say that we have also the lovely Jada Selner joining us. I'm so glad we got the tech issues figured out. Welcome, Jada. Would you mind introducing yourself, your business, and also the courses that you create?
Yeah, so I am the host of the Lead with Love podcast and also the creator of the Love Over Metrics Incubator, which is a mentorship and mastermind program for women with big ambitions and even bigger hearts. And I am also the course creator of Build Your Challenge, which is about creating a simple and fun way to build your community online as well as your email list without compromising your integrity in the process. And one of my superpowers, I co-founded Simple Green Smoothies, where we grew our community to over 355,000 email subscribers, 400,000 followers on Instagram, 300,000 Facebook fans using free online challenges without paid advertising or affiliate offers. And so being able to help people do that step by step to build their own challenge to build and connect and nurture their community online.
I am so excited for this. And actually, one of the things that I'm very interested in talking about is that, as you can see, the people that have been coming in, that we have our different guests here, you might notice that they have very different brands. But even within the stuff that they're doing, Susie, you had two very different topics. Jada, two very different brands. And same with Benny. I know you're into that transition now. So one of the things that I want to address when it comes to creating a course without overwhelm is what I think is a very first step. We're not even going to get into like the technical part of it or coming up with or creating your content. I think the very first step that gets people stuck is, what's my topic going to be? So I would love for us to start, and Susie, we'll start with you, but for you, when you're coming up with your courses, how did you get clarity on what your topic should actually be about?
So to give you a tiny bit of background, I actually worked in media for 7 years. And so my background was advertising sales. So I had no real understanding of online digital marketing or even where to start. The reason I got out of that is because I became pregnant with my first son, and I took a course, a hypnobirthing course, it taught me how to relax and trust my body and have a positive birth. I then used the same skills with my second child and thought, this is amazing. I really feel passionate about learning how to teach this. And so I learned it offline. And then I made the decision that I was going to work for myself. So I left media and started I became a hypnobirthing teacher and a hypnotherapist and a psychotherapist. And as I was trying to navigate working for myself and being a new mum, I was really like, I love this, but this isn't working for my family. I wonder what I can do to be at home more, earn money, but still contribute to the family income. And so I just started thinking. I actually enrolled in an online course to learn about online marketing, and it was through doing that course I was like, actually, I could take what I'm teaching in person when it comes to hypnobirthing, and I could put it online. And I did a little bit of research and realized at the time nobody was doing that. So the course that I created was the first video-based hypnobirthing program in the world. I mean, it doesn't need to be the first. I was just lucky, but that's where it came from. It was really organic. It was like, this is information that I don't need to be there in person for, but I can still, if I break it down, I can still communicate it really powerfully. So that's where that came from. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. So it sounds like for you, for your topic, it was personal experience. And I would actually love to know for you guys in the chat, please type in if any of these answers are resonating with you, but I'd love for you guys to type in and let me know, are there topics where you've personal experience and that is leading to you wanting to teach a course on that topic? I'd love to transition to you now, Lauren. How did you come about like choosing the topic? Like, how did you know? Did you validate it before? Did you just, it was something that you loved to do? What did that process look like?
Yeah, I think this is definitely really relevant for me because I built up a social media following of around, by the time I started courses, I had over 100,000 followers on social media who were all extremely engaged. And I had people asking me, how did you build this following? And I actually built my following within the fitness industry. I was selling fitness ebooks, workout programs, all evidence and science-based training and nutrition, everything all like that. And then having built a following on YouTube, a following on Instagram, I then realized, wow, there is extreme demand from this. And I was actually having entrepreneurs come to me saying, how can I do this myself? And so it was already validated. I had people asking me, and not only did I have people who were entrepreneurs and they didn't know how to build a following because they wanted to make a bigger impact in the world and spread their message, and then of course build their business because of that. But I also had influencers asking me, how can I monetize? So from both sides of the, I suppose, spectrum, I had people coming to me asking questions. And so then I started seeing these big entrepreneurs whose podcasts I listen to, because I have a podcast as well. And I had all these people coming on my podcast saying, well, I've got an online course. Have you ever considered doing an online course? And then I found Teachable, and I literally I was hooked. I mean, I realized how I could just share a message really clearly with people through recording a video one time, getting all dressed up all nice, making it clear and to the point, getting them from A to Z as fast as possible. And that is honestly how I got into it. And I realized, just from people asking me questions, having been through a particular experience of building this following myself, I then realized that I could teach other people to do the same thing. And despite the fact when I first started, I was by no means the number one expert at anything or whatever, but I learned as I went along. And so I think that's how I got started, really.
That's great. And another point is that you kept hearing people ask you questions about things. And I think everyone is probably in that position where there's definitely a topic where people are like, can you help me with this? Or can you help me with this again? And it's like, that's something to listen to. Now, the question I have actually for you, Jada, which is that you have several different brands. And I know I've been seeing in the chat, people are like, and by the way, we will have a Q&A at the end of this so you can get your questions answered. But people who maybe have different passions or different brands, how did you choose what your first course was going to be? Like, did you feel like you had to pick one over the other? What was that process like?
Yeah, so for me, it was very similar to that. I was speaking on stages about how we grew our online community, and it always came back to being able to court our community through online challenges. And so it was just that repetition of, well, how did you do this? How did you do that? And I really came from it from a perspective of actually making it more of a beta. And so I didn't make it an online course at first. I actually started with creating a wait list that people could get on. If you would like to learn how to, create, promote, and launch your online challenge to build your community online, then put your name and email here. And I actually let that because I was, co-CEO, co-founder of Simple Green Smoothies. So it wasn't a priority business or monetization that I needed, but I really wanted to get that work out there. And so I kind of let that wait list just sit for a few months. So for anyone who's kind of been feeling like they're sitting on an idea, just like, it's okay. Like, don't beat yourself up, but I would say get some inspiration and actually take some imperfect action in the next 3 days of hearing all these inspiring speakers. And I decided to do a beta launch of it, so to not overcomplicate it. And I did
Can you explain what a beta launch is?
Yes. So a beta launch is where it's not a fully formed product. You're kind of still iterating, you're experimenting, you're trying to validate the idea if it's something that people actually want before actually creating the entire product on the other side. So I actually sold it before I created it. And what I did was I promoted 5 days. I did a Facebook Live challenge, just answering any questions that you have about creating challenges. And then I had that wait list that was just sitting there for months. I had 300 people on that email list. And I said, I'm going to do this live workshop for 4 hours on this date. Sign up here, $299. And I did a $20,000 launch within just a few short days on doing that beta. So I validated the idea that people were willing to pay for this type of knowledge and expertise. And then I went to work on my slides behind the scenes to create that workshop. And the reason why it was beta was because I couldn't deliver that content in 4 hours. I actually needed 8 hours to fully deliver it. So I added an additional day, like, hey, let's meet again next Saturday and I'll give you the last 2 modules. And then from there, I created it into digestible content that could then be uploaded on Teachable for people to consume easily. So that's really it was just kind of this idea on the side that I hadn't pressed play on because I did have this other business. And the beta was what allowed me to take off the perfection of this product needing to be perfectly polished, positioned correctly, and all of that. Like, let me just see if people would actually be willing to pay for this. And then I can take the time away to put some effort in building it behind the scenes. And I made it an application-based process so that I could get feedback and content and information. So I didn't overstuff it, because I think that's a big mistake we can make when we're creating products, is we want to give everyone, the entire kitchen sink. And you just really want to streamline it so that they are doing, how do I get from A to Z as quickly as possible? And so that was my intention and goal, was using that application information to only include what they actually needed versus all the things that I knew about that topic.
Oh man, there's a lot of good stuff there. And I just want to recap, just so you guys, some really interesting things that you said here. But one was you did a beta launch. So I think, another part about being overwhelmed is you're overwhelmed because you're like, I'm creating something and I don't even know if people are going to buy it. But also the fact that you made people apply, which is interesting, because you want people to go through it and to give you feedback. So you want to know that they're invested in the actual work and going through it, which I think is very interesting. Now, when it comes to, even if you were to do a beta launch, when it comes to just creating your topic or you're creating your course, something that comes up, and we kind of discussed it today at 11, is this feeling of imposter syndrome, this feeling of, who am I to be teaching? I've been seeing some of you guys in the chat here. You've been saying, you resonated with what Susie was saying about personal experience, Lauren with people asking her all the time about what they wanted to learn from her. But no matter what stage you're at, that comes up. You're like, who am I to be teaching? So Benny, I would love to ask you about this, because Benny's courses are on learning how to speak a language in under 3 months. And I imagine you probably had moments of imposter syndrome when you were creating that. I think we had actually discussed that too. But so how did you overcome that feeling when you were creating your content?
Yeah, so I guess when you're in the language learning space, people might expect that you have a background in linguistics. My background's actually in electronic engineering. So I certainly have the imposter syndrome there, that I feel like maybe I don't have the credentials needed to get my message out there. But ultimately, I found one of the reasons that I got inspired to start my blog and then my courses was because I found, as I would travel, people were genuinely interested in what I had to say. And even if it was just 2 or 3 people I might meet at a social event, I could see that what I was saying had some kind of value. So even though I know putting something on the internet may feel like this is going out into the whole world, am I competing with the big courses out there like Rosetta Stone or whatever? And ultimately, I'm just doing what I was doing before on a larger scale. So there's nothing to it involving me thinking I am the world's greatest expert in language learning. I just have a particular message that I like to get out there to people, to encourage them to make mistakes, to encourage them to speak the language as soon as possible. I have a way of suggesting that they do that. And I just kind of scaled that online as much as I could. So this is what it all comes down to. The imposter syndrome, I feel like sometimes you see, if you just try to put something out there and you get a positive response, then you can scale it up a bit.
And I'm curious, once you launched, what was that feeling like? Did the imposter syndrome leave once you started getting students, or was it still there? And do you still have it?
I still, because languages especially does have a lot of overlap with academia, I still do get these kind of discussions with people sometimes, like, what is your professional background? And so I think the imposter syndrome would come in if I was overselling where I'm coming from. For instance, a lot of people might like to call me a linguist because I speak multiple languages, but I refuse to use that word because it's also understood as a scientist of linguistics, someone who truly has done that professionally. So I call myself a polyglot, which just means someone who speaks multiple languages. And whenever I'm sharing my message with people, I make it very clear this is based on my experience. And if somebody wants to find an expert who has many degrees and so on, then they're welcome to do that. But if they feel the voice of experience is going to help them, if they feel my words are inspiring them, and with things like language learning, there is a lot of lack of confidence and things like that that people need a boost with. And that's kind of what I felt. I'm good at that. So it's not a case of me thinking of the entire scope of language learning and that I'm better than the best professor in the best university, because obviously I don't feel that way. I feel like there's a very narrow message that I'm trying to stick to, and I'm pretty good at sharing that message. And once you try it a little bit, like I tried my first course that was just an ebook long before I discovered Teachable, and it was absolutely hideous. It was just I literally just wrote up my advice and clicked File, Save as PDF in Microsoft Word. So definitely not the most beautiful ebook in the world, but people still liked it despite its low quality. And that showed me if they like something when it's that bad, maybe I can build on it, I can improve on it, and I can keep making it better and better and better. And I think that's what it comes down to. The imposter syndrome seems to be this gap people see between where they are and where the best person is. Like if you see anyone who you aspire to be online and you see where they are and the millions of subscribers they might have, it's important not to compare yourself to that person, because you can have success on a smaller scale.
100%. And I really hope that you guys not just hear that, but apply it to yourself. Like in anything, like if your mom's teaching you how to cook, you're not going to stop and be like, I'm sorry, like which cooking school did you go to? You're 100% right, Benny. It's like people want to learn from you because you teach in a certain way. You have a specific message. So I love that. Now I want to transition into creating your content. So let's say now that you've kind of hopefully sort of gotten over your imposter syndrome, you're a little bit more clear on what type of topic you are going to be teaching. How do we actually create this thing? So Susie, I'd love to hear from you, because I mean, when you were first starting, your course wasn't a course on courses. So how did you structure actually building it? Did you have lectures, modules? What did that look like?
So first of all, I had to get clear on what the key objective is, and that should be everybody's starting point. What do you want your client to have achieved by the time they've got through your program? And then you have to break it down. So ideally, and this feels counterintuitive, particularly when you're starting out, because like Jada said, when you're starting out, you want to put all of the information in. Everything that you have ever learned about anything goes into the program to make sure that you are offering enough value. What you learn to understand about online courses is that in order to get the best results, you need to assist people to get to the end result in the least number of steps possible, because you're not there to hold their hand. So you break it down into how many steps do they need to go through, and often it's good to reverse engineer your program. How many steps do they need to go to in order to get to the end result? And then break it down again. So each step, how I create my courses, are what are the 3 key things a person is going to need to go through, or the 3 key takeaways that they need to be able to have in their mind once they finish this module, that is going to help them get one step closer to the end result. So that's how I kind of break down the structure of the course. Each module has no more than 3, maximum 5 takeaways, but ideally 3 key takeaways, and then on to the next step. And then for me, I know that everybody likes to learn in different ways. So whenever I'm creating a course, I like to have audio, visual, and written materials to try to speak to each of those different learning preferences. You don't need to start off with all of those, but that's just the way that I like to furnish my courses now.
And when you're creating your courses, when you say, by the way, I love that, get to the outcome in the least amount of steps. Did you ever find, though, when you were creating your course that there seemed to be several outcomes? And like, did you find that you ever had to break things apart, or is it possible to have a course that has more than one outcome?
So I think this comes down to who your ideal client is and thinking about why are they signing up. So with the birthing course, what I was clear is that most people were signing up because they wanted to have a natural birth. However, when it comes to having babies, you might end up with a cesarean, you might have an assisted birth, you might end up in the water. So talking people through the different objectives and how to navigate each of those was important. And what I made really clear was that the key objective was to have a positive experience. So I looked at the different possibilities and I made sure that they had information to guide them through those various different options. However, in order to sell a course, being clear on what the one clear objective is much more helpful than giving people a whole list of different options. So for example, with Benny, having a course where it's like, you can sign up and you could learn how to speak French and German and Spanish and all of these things, that becomes overwhelming for the potential course purchaser. So my opinion is to have one clear objective that you are guiding people through.
That's so great. And actually, speaking of feeling like you have to add all this content and wanting to just overload information, Lauren, I know that you've had personal experience with this when you were creating your courses. Do you want to share a bit about some of the challenges that you faced when it came to creating your content and just going through that? Because I think we all experience that.
Yes, definitely. So I think that when it comes to creating an online course, sometimes you see some people who have courses and they advertise 20 hours of video lectures and there's so much content and you're like, oh my gosh, I have to do all of this content so that I can compete and so that I can advertise the fact that I have all these hours of videos. However, like what was mentioned earlier, you want to get people from where they are now to where they want to be as quickly as possible. Think about it this way. If somebody said to you, I can do a 2-hour consultation call for you and charge you $500, or if you could say, right, okay, I can fix this thing for you and it will cost like $100 and it will take me 2 seconds. Like, you would go for the quicker one. In fact, even if it costs more money, you would go in some situations for the quicker one because you want to reach that end goal faster. So when you're creating your online course, what I always do, I've got a few different courses now. And the first thing is like, I'm so all about making sure that you know who your niche or your niche is. Like, you need to know who these people are, who you are trying to help, because depending on who they are, then you're going to deliver the content in a different manner. So for example, I have, in fact, a course about finding your niche, right? So like when it comes to that, I'm not going to start putting in all the different content about all things about how to build your personal brand because that's beyond the scope of the course. You need to stick with exactly the purpose of the course because then in my primary flagship course, which is Impact Through Influence, this is the one where I began talking about like affiliate marketing, how to get brand deals, how to do all these different things when really the purpose of the course was to build an impactful personal brand and learn how to monetize your personal brand. And I didn't need to include all of this excess information about secret YouTube hacks. Like that was just irrelevant. So, you can realize like, okay, you can get your flagship program, you can have all the key information. And then if you need to, you can create other courses. So make sure that you stick to the scope of your course because you don't want to confuse people and you don't want to get them putting their energy on things which aren't actually going to get them the desired outcome, because then they will not think that your course, in fact, did what it said it was going to do. The key thing is to always make sure that your course does what you say it's going to do, because that's what people are paying for.
That's very interesting. So the fact that, and I'm seeing Donald in the chat is like, this doesn't apply to everyone. You know, some people just want a bunch of content. That's a very interesting point, though, that if you overload people with information to the point where they're maybe overwhelmed and they don't go through it, they're going to perceive your course as ineffective because they didn't actually go through the content. I've never thought of that. That's a very interesting point. But what would you say though, if someone like has so much content that they know is super valuable that they want to give to their audience? What do you do in that situation, Lauren?
Yeah, so I think that you need to really, what I would do is I would actually split up all the content into its overarching theme. So a great example of this is when I was building my courses, I was like, okay, there's so much content on finding your niche and getting crystal clear on your niche. So I'm going to put this in this folder here. And then there's all this content on social media primarily. I'm going to put this in this folder here. And then there's all this content on selling. I'm going to put this in this folder here. That could be 3 courses in itself. One about finding a niche, one about building a social media following, and one about selling. So if you can segment things so that they clearly have their desired outcome and just, then you could make more courses, or you could put it all into one big course, but you have to make sure that the price the price reflects all the different content. But really, I think oftentimes we want to deliver so much content because we want to wow our audience, but the audience will be way more wowed if they can get to where they want to get to and if they can get the exact outcome that they're after as quickly as possible. And I think that if you're able to split your course up into really clear different segments, then it allows you to market them more effectively. It allows you to market them to a more targeted audience. And I've definitely found this to be extremely effective when it comes to increasing sales, because let's say I get somebody into my funnel through the niche course, because now they've got their niche. Well, now that they've got their niche, they now need to know how to actually sell and build their social media, because they need to do that first. And so it's a really effective strategy. And I think that, honestly, I know somebody said that I don't think this works for everybody's style of course, but I definitely think that if you really segment everything out, I think you could definitely make it work for sure.
Yeah. And I know some people are maybe thinking like, oh, well, wait, why would I only give them like a little bit? But I think also, one, it makes it more accessible to more people because you're not charging for a premium course. It's a smaller course, so it's a little bit cheaper, so people can pick and choose what they want. But yeah, like you're saying, it gets to that outcome. Now, speaking of audiences, one of the key aspects to having a successful launch, and one of the main aspects, is having some form of an audience. Now, you do not need a large audience, but you obviously need people to share your course too. And there is no one better to talk about this than Jada, because you have done such interesting and unique things to grow your email list. I'd love to hear about what advice would you give to someone who is just starting out, maybe doesn't have a big following like when you started at the beginning. What are some things that they could do realistically to start growing their audience, whether that's for their challenge, for their beta group, or for their course launch?
Yeah, so I talk about tiny tribes, some little small tiny hacks that you can do to start to get in front of the audience that you want to get in front of. And one thing that I always say is to show your dance moves on the dance floor. So you really want to get clear on where you are most excited to share your message, your idea out in the world. And so the dance floor for you could be Instagram, it could be Facebook, it could be YouTube, it could be a podcast, it could be live in person, on someone else's stage. But actually choosing one dance floor for you to show up and find your tribe, I think, is really, really important. So often we see all of these different things pop up, and then we're all over the place, and then we're at all these different parties, and it's just too much. So you really want to pick one that you can go deep with, because you're going to get a lot more momentum and traction from there. And if you don't know which platform, just find the one where you feel most lit up and excited to be on, and start seeing if your people are on. So one thing that I say is OPT, which is other people's tribes, and actually looking at people, influencers who have an audience that you would like to get in front of. And you can start to learn just in reading their comments on social media, or if they've written a book on Amazon, looking on there and reading the comments there, to start to learn more about people's biggest pain points, what their struggles are, what some things that are missing in the marketplace. Because that's something that I did with Simple Green Smoothies, was I was actually reading other people's comments. And a lot of those influencers, they're so busy that they actually can't respond to everyone. So this is actually something that you can create as a unique differentiator for you to stand out online, is to do what I call no comment left behind. So I don't care if you have 10 people, 100 people, 1,000 people on your social media platform or wherever your dance floor is, respond to everyone who comments, and not just with an emoji of like heart this or smiley face or wink, but actually communicate and engage, because I think it's one piece that we're missing in the pie of like what social media is. It's about connection, and it's not about just consuming content, and it's not just about creating, it's actually connecting with the people online. And so if you can start to read other people's comments to get information and insight, then that can give you some fuel of what you can start talking about consistently so that you can show your dance moves on the dance floor. So that's just one way, one small little hack that you can do is actually just looking at other people's comments online to get more information of what you could start talking about and sharing about. Another way is even like what we're doing right now, right? Being on someone else's platform or panel, or being a guest on someone's podcast, and you just really leading from a place of being a unique messenger. So I say there are no unique messages, only unique messengers. And so even if you think someone's already done green smoothies before, someone has already done language before, but they haven't heard it from you. So really owning your expertise and your experience with confidence and reaching out to people in that way. Also share one more thing in building confidence and being able to connect with your audience online is start with one. Change one person's life first, and then amplify and scale that message from there. So a lot of times why people are not confident about sharing their message to connect with their tribe online is because they actually haven't helped people create real results in real life. So if you can find a friend, someone that you know, a friend of a friend, to actually help them go through a process and get a result that will give you confidence to talk about your message. Because until you can start talking about your message, your people are not going to find you. And so if you can find, for us, we had our own family members who would go through our courses, our challenges, our products. It's just like start with what you have versus trying to create and reach for something that doesn't already exist.
I love one of the comments saying, Jada is power. Yes, so many great takeaways, but I love that you say comments that are being left behind and addressing those ones. And I think that's one of the powers of when you're starting out and you don't have a big audience, is that you can be more personal. You can actually interact with people one-on-one. And that's something that a lot of people with bigger audiences just can't do effectively. So you actually have an advantage if you have a small community or a small list. Now, the next thing that I want to address is, and I've been seeing some people mention this in the chat, but let's say you start growing your audience. Let's say you've got your topic, you're creating your course. The biggest objection for actually delivering your content, and I think what holds a lot of people back, is my technology okay? What camera do I need? Someone was asking what mic I'm using. Like I need to upgrade my system and then I can launch my course and make millions of dollars. Now, this is actually going to be a very interesting question to address to you, Benny, because of course you have this incredible setup. You have he has a green screen. We've been to studio, a green screen in the background, but I know for a fact your courses are not all like that and have done incredibly well. So can you talk to us a bit about what did your course videos look like at the beginning, and how important do you think it is for people to invest in like the fancy setups, the cameras, etc.?
Yeah, absolutely. So everything that you see me doing right now, I've only been able to do this for the last year. And actually, all of the courses that I sell on Teachable that have video in them are just very simply me in my living room talking to the camera. And I make sure the content itself is as good as possible. But ultimately, I would say if someone is struggling that they feel they need to have exactly the right equipment before they start, that's not actually what your biggest issue is. Because the way like I said previously, the way I got into it was to release a very low quality ebook first and build up from there. So actually every video that you can get from any smartphone nowadays is absolutely perfect. That's all you ever need. You can buy for $10 a little tripod if you look for a smartphone tripod on Amazon or something, and you can position it like on your bookshelf. You don't need a giant tripod, and you record and you're good to go. The only thing I would say that does make a difference is the sound, and this is something that a few people have mentioned. So like if possible, I would spend money on a separate microphone. It doesn't have to be a $5,000 microphone, just has to be a separate microphone. You can get one of those clip-on mics that plugs into your phone also for $10 or $20. And that little investment makes a world of difference, because people need to be able to hear you as clearly as possible. And some things you might be able to fix in post-editing, but you want the first recorded version to be as good as possible. So I'm having loads of fun playing around with all sorts of technology here. But I started my YouTube channel way back in 2008. And I was essentially homeless. Everything I own in the world would travel with me. So I couldn't, for space restrictions and weight restrictions, I couldn't travel with nice equipment. So I had one of these cheap little point and shoot Canon cameras. And that was it. That was what I recorded everything on. And I had separate audio whenever possible. And then basic software like iMovie, for instance, if you're on a Mac. And Adobe just came out with Adobe Rush, which I think is free to use for a certain amount of time for editing. And this lets you to just put it all together as quickly as possible. So the equipment isn't important. Like everything that I'm doing right now is interesting, but it's not actually improving the message that I'm giving to you. This is just for silly effect. I can get a quick laugh from people if I'm like, oh, look, I'm in Halloween mode now. Look at this. Isn't this funny? But this isn't actually going to improve my message. I think of other ways I can use all these silly visuals if it's necessary. But like when I think of the best courses that I've ever watched or listened to, I don't think of how good the lights were, how the camera was an 8K camera. It's just if the content is good. And I am telling you, if you have good content and you know your message is important, you can do it with the equipment you already own right now, or for just like $20 worth of investment. You can build upon that. Like I do now, like that I have like special lighting, so I just look a little better in the video. So it's good that I do that, but I actually appreciate that more now because of where I've come from. And I think there's a danger for a lot of people to just throw money at the problem and buy the most expensive camera, buy the most expensive microphone, and not really know what to do with it. And I think it's better if you just get into recording right now, and then you see why you might need a slightly better microphone, and then you're justified in actually buying it. But you can record video, you can record audio right now. You probably have everything you need at home.
Yeah, and I'd love to know, has anyone ever asked you, like with your original courses, were they ever like, hey, I wish your video content was a little bit nicer. I wish you used a ring light and a Blue Yeti mic. Like, has anyone ever called you out on what your courses look like the quality?
The only time I ever get called out is audio. And I know that in one of my videos that I don't sell anymore, because the room I recorded it in was very echoey, that's something that even later on I wasn't able to fix. But no one has ever said, oh, I don't like that you use the 720p camera. I demand 4K content only. Or you should use a diva light. I don't like that I can see the shade on the right side of your face. No one cares about that stuff if they want to learn a language. They care that I'm telling them, do this, learn this, try to remember words this way. And that's what they want. They don't care about the visuals. The visuals make it slightly nicer, make it look a little bit more professional, but the course will sell. And I sold my initial courses very well on the absolute most limited technology you can imagine. And as long as the sound was audible, That is all that you need. You do not need to, you're not going to have people complain about it. Like, I really think audio is the only thing that you should put a little bit of work into. And nowadays, everyone has an excellent camera on their smartphone.
This is so great. I'm seeing there's a lot of aha moments in the chat. Now, before we get into the Q&A, and I would love to give you guys some time to think of your questions, type them into the chat so we can address it to our guests today. But I'd love just to go around and for us to share what has been one of the biggest lessons that you've learned from launching courses, or something that you just wish you knew before you did. So Susie, we'll start with you, but what's been your biggest lesson or tip that you'd want to share with people starting out?
I think it is less is more, and it has been talked about earlier on, but I can't. It feels counterintuitive to put less in, but that is probably the most powerful thing that I have taken away. And starting where you are at is the best thing that you can do, because every time you create a course and you have people go through it, you learn more. That's the power of the beta as well. You learn more, you learn how you can improve it, and you iterate, you bring on the next iteration of it, so it can just get better and better and better. So waiting until you think that you've got perfection is a false use of your time. So if you have the idea, start, put it out there, learn from your students, revise it, and then put it out again. And the more you do it, the more confident you'll become.
So great. And Lauren, how about you? Your biggest lesson that you've learned for course creation that you'd give to someone?
Yes, so I definitely agree with everything that was just said. An online course is an ever evolving piece of content. It's something that it's not like a book, right? When you write a book, you write it, you get it printed, and then if you want to change something, you have to go, well, I mean, you could try recall all of the books. However, it's so simple when it's an online course. You literally just refilm it and re-upload it. It's amazing. You can add workbooks if you think that it will add value to your audience. And then once you've done that, you can simply email all of the students saying, hey, I just added this to this particular lecture. I think it's going to be really valuable for you. But it's definitely making sure that you take on board feedback from your students and you figure out what's going to be really great for them. And not only does that add value to the course, but it also makes your students feel really like they get a say in what's going on. And I also think another thing is you need to think of your course actually as its own business. So it's not just an online course. It does become an entire business. And I think that should not put you off, like, by any means, because it's a very scalable business. Honestly, I mean, I would never, now that I used to really want to start my own marketing agency and have like loads of employees and all this stuff. But now that I sell online courses, I've realized how incredibly scalable it is, even just with a lean team. And so, yeah, you just start with a minimum viable product. So the first time I started, I literally just filmed with my iPhone. I broke my camera and I was like, I want to release this course. I'd already contacted a few people about it. And so I couldn't use my camera, I didn't have a mic, and just edited it all myself. Now I've got a team who I work with. I was just actually away in San Diego. I met up with my business partner and we turned our Airbnb into a studio with a green screen and everything. But this time last year, like when I was first starting out, in fact, I was only starting out around 8 months ago, I never would have had bandwidth to do that. But that was only 8 months ago when I first started. And now I've taken this to where it is now, all thanks to starting. And if I had waited to start until I had all the equipment and until everything was perfect, then I would not be where I am today. So I think that the biggest thing that I've learned is that a course is an ever-evolving project. It's something that you can tweak and change as you see fit and as your students would like. And it's something that can honestly just change your life for the better. I mean, wow, it's just crazy how much my life has changed since I started online courses. It's amazing. So, yeah.
So good. Jada, your parting words, tips you would give, lessons you've learned.
Yeah. So from a tangible perspective, get your big ideas out of your head and onto paper. My secret weapon is like big poster paper. And also Trello is a great way to just create your modules and start to kind of map things out. But I say to not do our big ideas behind tiny screens. We need to do our big work on big paper, and print it out if you need to, but just get your ideas out of your head. And from a mindset perspective, like one of my biggest lessons is for you to know that it's not just about you creating a online course so you can create passive income and sip, like a pina colada on the beach, but people are actually waiting for you. They are waiting to learn from you. Like, you are going to make a shift and transformation in someone else's life. I just received an email a couple of weeks ago from someone who said they followed my Build Your Challenge course and they did $30,000 in revenue. And it's like, I didn't coach them. I wasn't on a call with them. They were able to just follow along something that I created and shared from my own experience, that they are able to change and shift their lives. So just don't get caught up and put all the attention on you. Really put the attention back on the people that you are serving, because they are waiting for you.
So great. Yes. And Benny, last but not least, your parting words and lessons you've learned from creating courses.
I'll be brief. Something I always like to say in language learning is there are 7 days in a week and some day is not one of them. I would say, do it now. Just make something and get it out there, ship it. I know it won't be perfect, but the world isn't perfect. One of the best decisions I've ever made is to be a proud imperfectionist. It is the secret to any success I've had, is to make something that's good, get it out there, and then keep improving upon it, and not to wait until I've got the perfect thing.
So great. All right. So we've got a couple of minutes left for questions. I mean, I'm seeing you guys already answering in the chat. Team Teachable's answering your questions too. Something that someone had brought up though, and feel free here, let me get you guys all up here. There we go. And feel free to, if you have an answer for someone here, how long are your segments normally, someone is saying? So maybe like for your videos, for each video that you create, how long do you normally have that per section?
Yeah, I think maybe mine are a little bit shorter than other people's. I go for typically 8 to 15 minutes. I like to keep mine short and to the point. Some of them are even way, way, way less. Honestly, I think I've got some that are about 3 minutes long, maybe even 2 minutes, because the purpose of the content is to get them from start to finish as fast as possible. And you can always include a workbook as well if you feel like the content would be better suited to a workbook.
That's great. And how about you, Susie, Jada, Benny? Have you guys done anything differently? Same thing?
No, I tend to keep my content 15 minutes or under. However, I do have to say that I have invested in courses where the modules are much longer than that. And when it's amazing content, I will sit there with my headphones on and I will listen on the MP3 and I will listen and listen and listen and then come back to it again and again and again. So I think the ideal is to keep it short from a learning consumption perspective, but there are no absolute rules.
It's great. And I'm seeing here a question about, do you write a full script for each video that you read off? Jada, you have some knowledge bombs and some really great one-liners, but I don't see you reading a script, but I'm curious, do you use scripts for your videos?
I use outlines. So I will print, again, like I like to get it off the screen. So I'll print an outline out of like, what are the big ideas? But usually my slides end up being my prompts for me, because I know my content so well. If I see an image or I see a word, then I can kind of go with it. A little hack, if you're in something like Keynote or PowerPoint, you can be in presenter mode and you can record your screen and have notes at the bottom. And then if you were editing an iMovie or ScreenFlow, you can just cut the actual slide presentation versus having those notes there. So you can have, that's just a little hack. I don't use that, but I know people who have, and that's been really helpful for people who kind of need that script for a little extra confidence boost.
Yeah,
go on, Lauren.
Yeah, sorry. I was just going to say, I don't know about everybody else here, but I actually don't use slides for myself. My audience, when I was doing my beta round, they told me that they preferred talking head. I do have a YouTube channel and I have been doing YouTube for 3 or 4 years now. So I come across much better on camera than I do when it comes to a PowerPoint or something. So my audience likes me talking head, and then if any key things come up, I'll write it across the screen. So I do think it really depends on what your audience wants, who they are. My audience are people who are used to seeing me on YouTube. They're also people who watch other YouTubers, vloggers and all that. So that's what they prefer. But I think it always comes down to who is your target audience and how would they like to absorb the content. You can even ask them, you can literally ask them. I think that's so powerful.
This is great. And last but not least, Benny, do you use a script? Do you use anything for your videos? My mind has a very particular studio setup, but I'll let you.
So it's great to see that some things feel so organized in the end. But one thing that I found, I have ADHD, so I'm extraordinarily unorganized. And this means that when I try to make content, what I found just works for me is if I just record without pressing stop. And then afterwards, I'll cut between the scenes. And you see a lot of YouTubers do this. Things like Vlog Brothers, when they upload videos, you see them talking here, and then suddenly they're over here, and suddenly they're over here. That's cutting between their hesitations. So I might actually upload a 20-minute long video because I'll keep getting a word wrong or I'll forget the point I was supposed to be making. And then afterwards, in my editing software, I'll pick the best parts and I'll do something visual, like I'll clap or whatever to show that's the scene I want to keep. And if I have a visual of the audio waveform, I'll see a little spike, and that way I don't have to watch the entire extraordinarily awkward 20 minutes over again. But that's something that you can do. If you're like me, that I could have a script, but I've tried teleprompters and it just takes too long for me to set them up. Even one that I have that actually just uses my phone and I attach to the camera. It's just an extra step that I never really got into using. So I'm just better talking at the camera, making the mistakes, and then fixing them as I'm editing the video later.
I love it. And the last question that I know everyone has been asking throughout the entire thing is, who are our presenters and how can we stay connected? So let's go around because this is just a panel. These presenters have incredible brands and they share so much knowledge throughout everything that they do. So Susie, let's start with you. What's your full name, business, and where can they stay connected? And I'm posting links to in the chat for everyone that is wondering.
Yeah, my full name is Susie Ashworth. That is Susie with a Z. You can find me at susieashworth.com, and I'm playing a lot on Instagram at the moment. So you'll find me at Susie_Ashworth, and it's Susie Ashworth 2 on Facebook.
Love it. How about you, Lauren?
So my name's Lauren Tickner. I'm at Lauren Tickner on Instagram. I'm gonna leave a link in the little chat that we have going on there. I also have a podcast about entrepreneurship and it's called the Millennialaire Podcast. So it's a little hard to type sometimes, but if you type my name into any podcast app, you can find me, but I'm also going to leave it linked in the chat as well. But yeah, mainly on Instagram at Lauren Tickner.
Love it. Jada?
Yes, I'm Jada Selner, and my domain is jadaselner.com. You can also find me iTunes, Spotify, BeanPod for the Lead with Love podcast. And for those who are interested about the buildyourchallenge.com is where you can get a free little checklist for building your own challenge to build your community and your tribe too.
So great. And last but not least, we have Benny Lewis.
Yeah, so everyone would have seen the link that you shared for Fluent in 3 months. That's where I do all my language learning stuff, but I've been seeing a million questions about how I do all of these visuals. So this is Stream Trainer is something I've just started. You guys are welcome to check that out. And I really hope within a couple of months to have a teachable course to help people figure out how to do all these things. So just check out Stream Trainer and I will explain everything over there to people. But otherwise, for my language learning stuff, it's fluentin3months.com.
So great. Well, thank you all so much for being here. I hope you've enjoyed this panel. It's so great that, there's so many people that talk about doing online courses and launching, but I mean, you guys know this, there's so few people that actually take the time to show up, to learn about it, to ask questions, to take action. So I hope this has been helpful. I can't wait to see you guys in our next event, which we have happening at 6 p.m. Eastern. It will be a workshop, a webinar, and it is with Danielle Leslie on creating your framework. So thank you so much for all being here, and I will see you guys next time.
I think a big thing that I've learned is you have to walk before you run. I see so many amazing, talented people who have so much to offer the world in terms of like where you've been, what you've overcome, and what you can offer in a course, and they quit too soon. Because just a year and a half ago, I did my MVC. I did like a minimum viable course. So it was just a tester for me. And I only enrolled 4 people. Like a year and a half ago, I only enrolled 4 people at $500 each. That's all I was able to get. My goal was 5. I got 4. That was a year and a half ago. Today, the course has done $2 million in sales since that. And the reason is because I walk before I ran. So just make sure that you're super clear about your gifts and you really focus on just getting those first students in and build slowly. Don't get shiny ball syndrome and think you have to do all these crazy things. The fundamentals are, do I know what my message is? Can I get my students results? Can I get butts in seats? And then once you master that, then you can get fancy and add on the Facebook ads and the webinars and all of that other stuff. My name is Danielle Leslie, and everything is teachable.
Making the leap to moving online and investing in Teachable and investing in all the programs that are required to make this kind of business work, it was scary. It was scary. It was also necessary. I had known by that point that the old model, the old way that I was doing things, it wasn't working. I do struggle with a chronic illness. I have a thyroid disorder that has affected me in various degrees throughout my life, but there was a critical point where it was affecting me so greatly that I physically couldn't show up to teach anymore. That teaching a long day of teacher training, I mean, when you're teaching a yoga teacher training, it's an 8 to 10 hour day, and you're on 150% the whole time. And at the worst moments of my illness, I would wake up in the morning for these long days and stand in the shower and cry because I knew I didn't have the energy to do this, and yet I had to. And I did. The only way that I teach is 150% I would give, and then I would pay for it for 3 weeks. So I didn't have it in me to keep going at the pace that I was going, to continue to try to make the meager living that I was making. And I didn't have an alternative. There is no paid vacation for the yoga teacher. And I didn't have enough money anywhere to sock anything away to try to take the time that I needed to recover, let alone to seek the medical experts I needed to heal myself. So I knew that there was something about going online. I'd wanted to do it for so many years, ever since that first podcast. I knew that there was a way for me to level the playing field, to make yoga accessible. There were so many benefits. And I believe so heartily in what I do that it was time to do it. And I just knew that if I could make it work, it would give me the freedom and the space to be able to heal. Now, I'm not gonna lie to you, I got worse before I got better. And the effort and energy it took to actually get my business going and to put everything online was enormous. It was immense. It was on my own, in my apartment, on my couch, typing things away, recording things myself, editing the videos myself. There were periods of time where I didn't even leave the house. There was a period of time I didn't leave the house for 9 straight days because I knew I had to get it done, and I knew that it was going to make the difference in the lives of the people I was going to reach, but also mine eventually. I believed in it. I believed in it. And on some level, I guess I believed in myself too, but I had to get it done. I remember actually on I think it was on one of the Teachable Summits, one of your presenters, and I'm not sure who it was, said something about the fact that having money is great. You can go on vacation, you can do all the things that you dreamed, you can buy the things that you want, but the best part about having money is having it for the times you don't expect, having it for the rainy day. And it's like that hit me in the heart so much because I needed it so badly at that point. So it took a hot minute, but when I was able to get my business to do what it needed to do, you know, and the beauty of going online is like, I put the effort forth to creating that course, and I taught it in front of the camera for that one time, and now, a year, 2, 3 years later, that material is still teaching people. I don't have to show up 3 times a year in order to deliver that information. I can deliver it all day, every day, whenever people want. And if I'm sick or feeling down, I get to take the rest that I need. And that was never something that I had before. So that's what going online meant to me. You know, not only the freedom to be able to, go on great vacations, but the freedom to heal. So I had to get it done, and I did. Thanks. My name is Alana Kaivalia, and everything